Well, hello everyone, and welcome back to another 1.17 farm concept video. Last week's skeleton spawner stray farm got received very well, especially over on TikTok, so I'm super grateful for those of you who expressed your support over that way, and I hope you're looking forward to more videos of this type, as I really enjoy putting them together and hope that you're learning from them as well. Today's farm that we'll be looking at actually will kind of benefit from last week's farm in terms of the overall bone meal that you'll receive from that. Then again, you're going to get bone meal anyway from a skeleton farm, so it doesn't really make a huge difference. But the farm concept that we're working with today is an automated glowberry farm. Now, I can hear your thoughts going already. Why would you want a glowberry farm? Well, there's a couple of things that are unique to the glowberry that are quite nice, actually. So let's go ahead and grab some goods out of this chest. Looks like I already had a couple of glowberries anyway. But glowberries can actually be used as an alternate method of breeding foxes. And so you can now use sweetberries and glowberries to breed up foxes. Foxes are also going to be integral to the way that this farm works. They're also a really awesome new addition in terms of adding a new ambient environment. And as you can see here, they can be placed to dangle off of any block. So I thought it was initially just going to be, dirt blocks or other source blocks like that, but it turns out you can hang them off of just about anything so it doesn't mess around with your dynamics. And then if we take some bone meal, and this is going to kind of give you an idea of what we're looking for in this farm, adding bone meal to any section of this plant will cause it to grow up and give those berries, which is nice. And it's especially convenient that you don't have to hit it multiple times. As long as it's a fully grown strand, hitting it with the bone meal will cause the glowberries to spawn. Now, glowberries, as the name condones, does give off a certain amount of light, and it's not as bright as a torch is. If I pull up my menu here, you can see over on the left-hand side that the client light is currently hovering around 13 or 12. If we come over this way and we hang up a few more of these and add some light to them, you'll see that they're at about 9 if it's just one of them. And of course, you will get more and more light if you have more and more of these glowberries clustered up in a similar area. And just kind of so you get an idea, torches, they have that light level of 14 or 15 thereabouts, which is about as bright as things can be. So now that you know a couple of the applications for these glowberries, let's head up over the other side of this hillside and walk you through the construction of this farm and why it works in the way that it does. So once you've found the zone that you want to set up the farm, the first thing you're going to want to do is dig down 2 blocks about 15 blocks long, and this is going to be for setting up the collection system, and you will want to have this in place sooner rather than later, as it will prevent a lot of unnecessary backtracking. So let's just knock this out real quick. And then up off the side here, you'll want to at least make an exit so you can walk in and out of here, and it'll also be where we set up our collection system once we're on this side as well. Now, another item that you're going to want to do is you'll want to dig out, you don't need to dig out all of this side here, but the reason you'll need to do this is if we get our rails out, we'll want to grab our powered rails and a couple of standard rails, and then we're actually going to need a lever as well. Because if I place this lever over here and I then activate it, that will be enough for me to turn on a couple of powered rails. So I'll put 3 down, and then I will put down another 5. We'll do the same thing here. You can actually get away with putting a lever here instead. And see, it'll power all 3 of those segments based off of the redstone powering mechanics. Let's get another 5 down. Actually, this is where we're going to want to have kind of our last set of the powered rails, just to make sure that we get up and out of this little section here. And as a matter of fact, we'll want to break this up a little bit because right here is where we're going to set up our collection system. And this is a fairly simple little trick. It does involve some redstone mechanics. So what you're going to need is you're going to need a hopper. You're going to need a chest. Any sort of chest will do. Well, not any sort. You can't put things into an ender chest. You could use a shulker box here as well if you really wanted to. But a hopper, a chest, you'll need a comparator and a repeater and a redstone torch. So those should be the different components that you need. You'll want to put your chest here. You can make it a double chest if you want to, or extend it out with a larger storage system. You'll want to put your hopper here, and then you'll need to put some containment blocks around this, except for right here. I actually got a little too far ahead of myself. You'll need to stick a comparator right here with the 2 bits facing in towards the hopper. Then you can put a block on top of your comparator. You'll need to have something else right here. You'll want to put in a powered rail on top of your hopper. And then you'll need to have a redstone repeater right here. You'll need to put a redstone torch down here and then place a block on top of that torch. And this provides a mechanism where if you have a minecart with hopper, which is what we're going to use for our collection system here, once we have everything up and going, if we throw a couple of these glowberries in here and then send this hopper minecart on its way, when it gets up to the top there, it will no longer be powered because the hopper down below will recognize, or the comparator will recognize that the hopper has items in it, and it will detain this block here until everything has been emptied out, at least into the hopper. And because the hopper draws items slower than a minecart with hopper does, it does take a little bit of some extra time for that to be docked in here. But we're starting to drag on a little bit, so let's get on with the next couple of things that you'll need for this build. So for convenience's sake, I have these 15 spots that you'll need for the width of this farm marked out with this andesite. Now what you'll do from here is you'll need to grab a dispenser, and you'll need to place that facing this way or out towards you on each of these spots. And once you have those dispensers in and you know where the parameters of your farm is, you can actually go ahead and fill in the block right below where all of these are going to be, because this is going to need to be a place where entities, specifically the foxes, which we'll explain in just a minute, need to be able to walk around. You'll then need to take on the back side of these dispensers, you'll need to make sure that there is a continuous line of blocks, and then place a line of redstone along the entire back section here. It may be best for you to determine where the center point of those blocks are and kind of mark that. It's not crucial, but if you're a stickler for symmetry, then you certainly would want it this way. Actually, with the design that we're going with, you could technically extend this. You have your center piece and then extend it 15 blocks in either direction, but then you're going to have some productivity issues. So I really don't recommend making it too much larger than this. You can set up multiple nodes, but this is about as wide as I would recommend making that. Let's get some of this deep slate into this build. You know, it's the fancy new block, so let's make sure that we have that on hand as well, as these glowberries will be able to hang off of any block. We shouldn't have an issue with that. So let's go ahead and get these out here in our inventory. And just like this, we'll be able to have all of these hanging around. Now, these will grow up on their own, but if you really want to make sure that you speed this process along, you will want to have all of them open at the same time. Let's go ahead and get the polished deep slate stairs in here as well. And you'll want to place these upside down so you can access the backside of your dispensers for restocking. And speaking of restocking your dispensers, you will want to have these completely filled with bone meal. And, well, not completely filled, but the more bone meal you're able to put in here, the less maintenance you're going to need to perform on this farm in terms of restocking it and making sure that it is ready to go. Next, you'll want to make sure that you have everything encased in glass. The easier, or the quicker you can do this, the easier it will end up being. So let's just go ahead and start that now. Now, what you'll need to do is probably place a trapdoor on the top of some blocks here, because you're going to need to either lead or lure some foxes in here. But since we are in creative mode, we can do something a lot easier than that. And that is just plop 2 or 3 foxes into this area. Now, the thing that you'll need to be aware of is these foxes, they will doze off in the daylight, but there is a workaround for that, which we'll get to here in just a moment. But first, we're going to need to plant up the rest of these glowberries so the farm is prepped and ready to go. Now, as I was saying with the foxes just a moment ago, they will doze off in the middle of the day, but for whatever reason, they do not like armor stands. So if you just place down an armor stand in view of where they are, even through glass, they will not be able to sleep during the day. So is it forced labor? I guess you could kind of look at it that way, but I'm going to choose to look past that for the sake of this farm and getting it to work. You do want to make sure that you have your foxes in this farm before you do this next step, because this is actually going to prime the system and get it ready to go. So once you have the center section of your farm, you'll want to place a redstone torch on a block that's on the same level as the redstone dust. That will activate all of your dispensers, and if you have the bone meal in them, it will cause this bone meal to trigger the growth of the glowberries that are down at this lower level. And then, as you just saw there, the foxes will go around, they will pick the glowberries, and occasionally when they have something in their mouth, like this guy spawned in with something in his mouth, though I'm not sure exactly what it was. It looks like it was some wheat. They will drop whatever they're currently holding in their mouth, and if they're next to something else or that they're interested in, then they will drop that as well. And that's where your hopper minecart comes in terms of running back and forth and collecting these items. And it's not a lossless farm, as you just heard and saw there. The foxes will eat some of the glowberries, but it's fine. You know, they're working for us. You can just call it earning their keep or paying their wage. So now we'll want to place a single piece of redstone dust on the back side of this block, and that will allow us to power the redstone torch on and off. And now we need to set up the classic etho hopper timer in order to make sure that this kind of auto maintains itself. So the way that you'll need to do this is you'll need a couple of different blocks. We already have a few of them. We don't need another redstone torch. We don't need this block per se. I mean, you will need a block of some sort, but you'll need some comparators. You'll need some hoppers. You'll still need some redstone dust. And you will need some sticky pistons and a redstone block. So back one spot from here, you'll want to place your hoppers facing into each other, like so. And for this particular farm, I found it best if you place the timing mechanisms in sets of 2 stacks of 64 items. That allows the foxes enough time to get in some work before the glowberries are refreshed. And on the off chance that you have some glowberries that are still present, your dispensers will not dispense the bone meal, so it's going to conserve on your bone meal if the foxes don't happen to get to everything to harvest it. On the back side of these hoppers, you will need to place comparators pointing into the hoppers like so. And this will help to monitor the activity that is within the hoppers themselves. You'll now need to place a block here and a block here and place redstone dust on the opposite side of those blocks. And the magic doesn't really happen until you start putting in the redstone block. And we actually need to do that before placing in the other piston here. And you'll notice now that these blocks, which were being passed back and forth, are now being passed one way in regards to the other. And this happens because when a redstone block or any component of redstone wiring is up next to a hopper, it will actually lock the contents of that hopper and not allow the items to leave. So you'll see that we have the items flowing in to this hopper, and when it fully fills up, the comparator then recognizes that the hopper was empty, and it'll allow this block to shift back in the opposite direction and trigger an update to whatever's running off of that. In this case, it's just a simple redstone torch that powers the rest of this line. And you just saw that switch back over to trigger the update of all of these glowberries being grown. So the last component we need to put in place is the hopper minecart. And like this, it will run back and forth and collect the goods off of these foxes. Now, because it's running on a hopper minecart, it is going to be very loud. So I would advise that you don't set this up near your, or like in your base, but you will want to set it up near where you work to make sure that you are loading the chunks to the point where it will run and operate. And again, it's not lossless, but it does work fairly efficiently. Of course, you need to ignore these first two stacks because that was the trial that we put in there, but you'll see that it is collecting glowberries at its own rate. And once you get a certain amount of distance away from the farm, you see we're over here about 20 or so blocks. The minecart sound is very, very faint, but still within the loaded chunk area where everything will continue to work, including our hopper timer that's on the backside there. So glowberries, they're not the most efficient food source, but they do have those alternate uses such as ambience and the added benefit of being able to breed up foxes with the glowberries like you normally would do with the sweet berries. But what do you think of this farm? Do you think that it's a practical design? Do you think that there are some tweaks or adjustments that could be made to it? Be sure to let me know in the comments down below, and leave a like on today's video if you found it helpful, interesting, and or enjoyable. With all that being said, thanks again for your time, and I hope that you have a fantastic rest of your day. Bye-bye.